Hello, everyone, and lovely to meet you all. And today I am joined by the Honourable Brother Mudge, who joins me, who is a public speaker, and he is right at the front line when it comes to protesting about Palestine. So I'm pleased to say it's absolutely an honour to have you here today.
Thank you.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you?
Very well, alhamdulillah. So today, tell me, where have you been today?
Today's actually been a busy day, but one key event of today was a stand-up to racism demonstration in Bradford. And the whole point of that was, obviously, we've seen a rise of far right across Britain. And we're making it clear to the far right that they're not welcome in Bradford. So today's demonstration was just a reminder to people that if they do come, it's not that you get your fists ready and you fight back, but it's about just uniting together.
Right, okay. So, anyway, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to address the topic of Islamophobia. So it seems like there's been lots of events which have happened. You know, one of the events was sadly the one that we saw going viral on all social media outlets around the boys and the police at Manchester Airport. And the other one is that sadly the one on Monday, Southport, the young girls who lost their life tragically, and our heartfelt condolences to the parents, to the families, to everyone who's been affected by that heinous crime. So do you want to say something just about that before we really delve into the topic of Islamophobia?
Well, definitely condolences to those three girls who have lost their lives in such a brutal way. From Bradford, our hearts are with you lot and our prayers are with you lot. In regards to the riot that took place in Southport, the community of Southport have said that their community is not like that. Their community is full of peace, and Muslims, non-Muslims live together united. So these people that they've came from different cities, manipulated a situation whereby it wasn't even mentioned that a Muslim was behind these attacks, and they just manipulated the situation to cause chaos. But unfortunately, they took the limelight away from those three girls onto themselves and caused chaos on the streets.
So just to ask you, Mudge, this is something that I have real issue with, is when there's a crime committed, whatever that crime looks like. So for instance, let's look at right now, Hugh, and I can't remember, is it Hugh Edwards?
Yes.
The news reporter who's had images of young girls, paedophilia, absolutely disgraceful, disgusting for a news reporter who's been reporting on news on our channels for many, many years. Nobody's talked about him being white or his faith.
Exactly.
And how does that make you feel when we hear these kind of things? And as soon as it's any kind of criminal activity, but if it's a Muslim, the race gets mentioned, the faith gets mentioned. How does that, do you think, make people feel?
What makes me question everything is writing on a headline, Muslim, does that sell the stories more? Because we see this a lot. If a Muslim, I'm not advocating that they've ever done right in that circumstances of terror-related attacks, etc., but they like to put the religion in the headline. Now, they are aware that there's far right around and they'll get triggered by these titles, but yet they're stemming the far right to come together and retaliate the Muslims. Now, referring to someone's religion does not highlight the entire religion or the entire culture. Now, there's bad apples in the Muslim community, there's bad apples in the Christian community, and bad apples in the Jewish community as well. But one person from that community that's done wrong does not symbolize the entire community. And we've got a lot of hate for that. And it frustrates me that the media continuously target the Muslims through their headlines and manipulate situations to cause divisions.
Cause divisions and perhaps to really sell a story and get the views. Right, okay, so our coffees have arrived, so we can join them.
That is nice.
Was it a good choice? Okay, so let's talk about, I think let's talk about the protests that you attend in terms of what's happening in Gaza before we really delve into Islamophobia and Islamophobia. That there's lots of Islamophobia around what's happening in Gaza. There are lots of Muslims, and in amongst that we have Christians as well, and other communities. What is it, 400 or is it 300 days to date?
301 or 2 days.
Right, so just over 300 days of bombardment and indiscriminate killings. And then I talk about something called how do we word certain things. So I often hear and see the abbreviations of IDF. For me, it's never been about IDF, the defense force. How can you be a defense force occupying a territory, which is Gaza is an occupied territory? So for me, that is a occupation force. So it's the IOF, the Israeli occupation force, not defense force. So not until we get the language correct, that's one of our first issues. Tell me about some of the protests that you've been to and that you've spoken. What is the atmosphere like, and what are the messages that you give to people?
When I started about 4 years ago, I was a uni student in Leeds when I first started, and there wasn't that many people that had come to these protests. And alhamdulillah, now a lot of people are mobilized. And one thing I can say is social media has allowed that to happen, because we've never had a live stream of a genocide taking place. The likes of TikTok have allowed us to see what's actually going on in Gaza. And with the communities coming together, we've got white people, we've got black people, we've got brown people. One thing the government couldn't do was unite people, but the Palestinians, they united people. You go to a protest, you'll see peace, you'll see love amongst people, passion amongst them all. And unfortunately, the circumstances, how we've all came together, are not the best. I always remind people that it's a long fight. This will be a long fight for us all. Take breaks. It's important to take those breaks and just revive your intentions. It's not about your ego when it comes to Palestine. It's about people's lives. You're saving people's lives here. And we've not seen a massive progress from our protests, but we've had the ICJ doing their reviews and stuff like that. So alhamdulillah, improvement is coming. And as Muslims, we believe Palestine will be free. We've seen it in our scriptures as well. It's just about how we as an ummah, the people, will support our Muslims when such events are taking place, like a genocide.
So I know that it's deeply had a profound impact on my mental health with some of the things that I had to see. And I know people might think, well, there's people who are living that, but we are human at the end of the day, and our minds are the way that they are, and our brains, operate the way they do. And I've really struggled going to work, because all I could see is those images of whether it was children or whether it was men or, women, when people often talk that this many children died, but it's irrespective of whether it's a child or a woman or a man, it is a human being. And no human being should be killed or tortured the way that some of these people have been. It seems like it's just another level of torture. They still can't forget the image of the young boy who was Down syndrome and what happened to him and what he said. Now, I have a sister-in-law who's Down syndrome, and when I just start to think about these things, and I think we live in a world and we see this, but yet our hands are tied. So it does have a profound impact on people's mental health. As a young man, what would you say? How do people keep themselves mentally well when you see things like this? Because we are living in very different times. Like you said, we're seeing things on social media, and these are things that we never were exposed to. We never saw. We were told. A lot of people would just believe the news blindly, read papers and, believe what, the mainstream media is telling us. But now we've got people like Mutaz Aziz, who's now reporting, and Wissam. There's loads of young journalists from Gaza itself live reporting, people who are not journalists but became journalists overnight, and we are seeing the truth. How would you say to people to protect your own mental health in all of this?
One thing is, I understand a lot of people say, well, consider the mental health of the Palestinians, but we're human, as you said. Everyone's minds are going to be in distress after witnessing all that and seeing all that. And I've had many, many sisters come to me, aunties as well, come to me saying it's taken a mental toll on me. And I've seen people that have came to these demonstrations and then a few weeks later they stopped coming because it's taken such a mental toll on them. I myself, when I first started, I didn't think it'd be for this long. When October 7th happened, I didn't think we're going to be protesting 9 months down the line. I thought it would come to an end. And what I started doing was, I was so busy, I started skipping meals. And from skipping meals, I started developing an eating disorder where food was not important to me. And when food used to be in front of me, I could not eat it. That's why I say it's important, take breaks. Breaks are really important. Reflect on what you're doing this for. Because I went through a circumstance where I could not eat at all for a long while. And it took me a while to build up that eating habit again. And it's important, take breaks. Don't feel guilty for taking breaks. Our minds are not wired to continuously do something without having an impact on ourselves. Those breaks will allow us to revive our intentions and know the true purpose on what we are doing this for. So whether that's maybe, I know some people weekly they go to demonstrations, whether that's maybe one Saturday taking a break, maybe going to a theme park, spending time with your families, do that. It's good for you. Now, the people of Gaza, I've spoken to a lot of people in Gaza, they've said to us that we need to maintain our mental health as well. And they ask us, how are you doing this? Like, Alhamdulillah, me and a lot of other people, it's a daily, this activism journey, we do it on a daily. And they're like really grateful for like how continuous we are doing this and stuff like that. But importance is take those breaks because your mental health is most important. You need to be tacked in this fight and you need to make sure you're well looked after as well.
That's a great point about taking breaks and spending time with loved ones. And like you said, struggle of not eating and trying to get back to eating food because you need fuel and that's your energy. And also taking breaks from social media
100%.
because it can be very addictive. And then just to take that break completely, I think it's good for your mental health. That's a really good point. So let's go now to the topic of Islamophobia and the roots of Islamophobia. Let's get to the roots of where did it come from? Who started this movement about the hatred of Islam? So when I think about the roots of Islamophobia, I see it as a multifaceted, involving culture, involving historical and political and social dimensions, and also just touching on what do you think and where this all come from? Because we had a little chat earlier, so it'd be really good to hear your views on that.
I mean, colonialism. If you want to see the main man behind all these far right and the Islamophobia, look on your £5 note. Winston Churchill. He's the main man behind it all. He divided communities. Today he's seen as a war hero and he's got statues across Britain for this heroic job he done in World War II, but he killed millions of Muslims. Nobody's considering that. He's no war hero. He's an oppressor. He killed many, many people. And he did not value the Muslims. He divided the communities. He made people go against the Muslims. And then it progressed into the likes of Enoch Powell, BNP, British National Party, who, if you look into the history of immigration and when Muslims and Pakistanis came to Bradford, Britain, West Yorkshire, wherever they came to, there was a lot of terminology used such as Paki. Now, Paki bashing was across Britain where people were attacking brown people because of the way they looked and because of the beliefs they had. Now, these lot, they did not know why these Pakistanis have came or why these Indians have came or why these Bengalis have came to Britain. They came to serve a purpose and to build the British legacy. They served this country. They worked in those mills for ages, those coal mines for ages. And what was that for? Britain. Nobody's considering that. Without them, the country may have gone bust, as in it would have collapsed. But the ethnic people saved this country and no one's considering that. It wasn't the likes of Winston Churchill saving the country. It was the like of the immigrants.
What do you think then people feared about Muslims? Because I talked about being racially harassed and physically beaten for looking Muslim in an all-white school back in the 80s in Birmingham. So I'm always keen to understand other people's views. What is it about Muslims that people are fearful, whether it's not fear or the hatred towards Muslim? Where does that come from? What is it that people are fearful about?
If you look into where it roots from, it's the media and it's the likes of Suella Braverman and people in the government who have stemmed this hate. They have caused Islamophobia. The media, the main aspect behind the rise of Islamophobia today. If I was to read those headlines, I would be shook as well. And now some people, they're not educated enough, and they'll read a headline and they'll be like, yes, it's the Muslims, the Islamists, the extremists. That's where we're seeing the rise of it. And these generations, they're telling their children about it as well. So they're growing up and they're Islamophobic as well, racist as well. But I don't see why people hate the Muslims. And I've asked many non-Muslims and white people, like, what do you actually think about the Muslims? And they've been very supportive of us. They're like, you're like any other person. We don't have no grudges against you lot. But I think
I would like to go that bit further by saying that if you are racist, come to Bradford, we will take you out for a curry. I mean, you probably like the curries anyway. That's the bit that you're not still like. You're eating the curries.
remember this chicken tikka. Is it chicken tikka masala? That's the national dish of Britain. Now, come on, that shows something. It's not fish and chips, it's chicken tikka.
So come to Bradford. And by the way, because we've got donuts in front of us, we're taking a break and we're going to be back with you. So one of the questions which I wanted to ask you was, we've got people who are immigrants within this country. I'm talking about legal immigrants who are perhaps come from warring countries, and some of the things they might have seen are horrific. And when we think about some of the journeys that people take just to come to safety, with what's going on in Britain at the moment, what do you think the challenges are for those people?
If we look at how severe Islamophobia and racial attacks are for us, theirs is much more worse. They are at the forefront where they continuously attack. Now, they've been given accommodation at hotels, and there have been regular protests outside these hotels saying, send them home, send them back. They're not welcome here. How would that make you feel? Now, these people, they haven't came for the fun of it. Their countries are being bombed. Their countries are being destroyed. And my message is, if you don't want them here, then tell the British government to stop bombing and funding wars and genocides in their countries. Nobody's going to come to the UK for the fun of it. Everybody loves their own country. But the reason they came here is because they can't build a future in their own country because it's getting destroyed. Now they're considering their children's future as well. Any mother, any father is going to put their child at the forefront and think, okay, they're not going to be safe here. I want my child to survive, so we should move. But these lot ain't considering that. Britain has got space for them. If you look around, there's a lot of space for these people. But the racists, the fascists, they're like, send them home, send them to Rwanda, all this type of stuff. But they're more than welcome here. We in Bradford, we welcome the refugees, and I know many of the cities would welcome the refugees as well.
I know some refugees who have done incredibly well. So we've got a Syrian refugee family who's got a place. I think it's in Thornton. They built like a cafe and they've done amazing.
Yes, it's all.
And, you know, I'm absolutely about supporting people who are, you know, there's two ways of doing things. One, you can rely on the government and wait for a handout. But people have got pride. You know, they want to work with their hands and, you know, feed their families. But I just want to go back and ask something about, so you are a young person, and I just wanted to go back and ask you about your parents. Were they born in this country?
No, my mum and dad, they came from Pakistan.
So they came from Pakistan. And did they ever speak to you about any prejudices that they faced or discrimination, whether it was at work or, you know, in education? And what was life like for them in comparison to what's happening today?
I always like to ask my parents because they got a first-hand account of the rise of fascism and the rise of racial abuse and stuff. Now, when I ask my mum, she doesn't like to get into too much detail about it. When I ask my dad, he tells me everything. There's I'm not going to name any location, but within that area, there was a certain time my father and my mother, or any of my family members, they could not go out because they were at risk of being attacked by the family. Now, they lived lives on edge that they're going to get attacked anytime soon, or racial abuse. Now, I remember when I was younger, I went to Blackpool. I was about 6, 7, and I was playing on the arcades, and a white boy came and started playing with me as well. And his mother dragged him away and said, "We don't play with the packets." I looked at my mum like, "Mum, say something." My mum didn't say anything back to them. And I asked her why she didn't say anything back to them. And I always reminded of this. She goes, "If you remember how brutal they used to be in the past, you might challenge them." She's got that fear inside her still, that my dad always says it, don't challenge them, just let them be, because they seen the severe side of far-right attacks. They couldn't walk freely. Alhamdulillah, we're blessed, we can still walk freely, but it took them lot a lot of sacrifices and a lot of challenges to walk the streets and build a future for us.
So what you're saying is there is hope, because that's probably 20 years or 15 years ago, things were so bad, and how, your parents coped with it is that you wouldn't challenge back. And sadly, I think that there are still people who wouldn't challenge it back if you are a minority within a predominantly white area, with what's going on currently around us. I suppose those people feel very fearful that, our window's going to get smashed in, or our car's going to get smashed in. So going back, and you've just shared your experience, and I'll talk about mine's. My father came here in the, I'd say, 60s, and then he settled. And he came quite young, and he worked in Scotland. And he had a horrific time, because it was every day in, day out, we would get called the P word, and given more work to do than anyone else. So there was like clear discrimination. But the father that we know, he's one who always stood his ground. So he decided to throw the towel in and say, "Well, I'm never going to work for anyone again." And he never did. What he did was set up his own business. Now, it's really interesting. My father was a market trader, and he had like a shop as well. And as a child, I wanted to be a boy when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That was the only reason, because I wanted to do the men's jobs.
Yeah.
So I helped my dad, because we come from a family with lots of girls. And my eldest brother was studying abroad at the time. And I remember saying, "Dad, I want to come to the markets with you." So that was like getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And he took me. And we went to Finmare. I don't know where that is, because I was a child, 10, 11 years of age. And I firsthand witnessed what racism looked like for my dad, and how my dad handled it. He was doing really, really well. Like financially, he was doing really well with all the stuff that he was selling. But there were people who were white and did not want him to have his market stall, because he was stealing their business. And there were physical fights. So what my dad used to do is say, "Get into the van and lock me in the van." Now, as a child, what children do is like poke their heads and try to see what you can.
Yeah.
And I'd seen some horrific fights. And what you'd also seen is that there were majority white people who've also got businesses, and there was perhaps maybe 2 or 3 stalls which were Sikhs. And the reason why I knew the Sikhs, because they wore turbans, visibly, I knew that they were Sikhs. And we grew up in a very multicultural place in Birmingham. We had Sikhs, we had Bengalis, we had white people, we had black people. And as a child, I don't remember my parents saying anything about these people. It was just, these are all the people we live around. So it was really lovely. And I really valued that. And the Sikh men came to the rescue. But I remember my dad holding his ground and really beating these people up, because he's physically quite strong. And I remember the Sikh men whispering to my dad saying, "It's not a place to bring your daughter. Don't bring her again." I was really sad, because I really wanted to come to the markets with him. But it just shows that what you had to do to stand your ground is that you had to physically fight and beat the other person in order to get that space made for yourself. And honestly, with God's grace, I feel like that we don't have to deal with that, because there's a lot more diversity, there's a lot more acceptance. You can be who you are in workplaces. So you can go to work, you don't have to fight. But even saying that, there is discreet racism still happening in a discreet way in institutions. And it's about, how do we tackle that kind of racism? So for me, when I talk about it, I think we need allyship. So people who are your allies are people who are white, who are black, or different to yourself, but they're going to fight your cause because they believe that, you are equally as important as, they are or anyone else. So thanks for sharing your story. And now you've heard a little bit of mine and everyone else has.
All I got to say is, if it wasn't for people like your father, God knows if we would have had our rights in the UK like we do today. Like, if it wasn't for them, would we be here, or would we be seeing those type of attacks still?
And he's, at any point, Moj, have you, because I'm from a different generation from you, have you ever thought, what am I doing in this country? You know what? Do I really belong here? Can I not just go back to where my parents have come from? Does that kind of ever cross your mind?
All the time, and it hit me a lot at university. So I went to Uni of Leeds, and my so-called friends, they used to say it's a joke. They used to ask me, "Oh, have you got a British passport?" "Yes, but you're not from here." I go, "Yeah, I'm born here." But they still made me feel like an outsider. Sometimes I used to walk around with a British passport in my pocket, pull it out, yes, I am British. But stuff like that used to make me think, do I belong here? Uni of Leeds was a big wake-up call for me, because I grew up and went to schools that were predominantly Pakistani and Bengali. And when I went to Uni of Leeds, there was various cultures, but a lot of white people there as well. And it was a culture shock for me at first. I had to change my ways a bit to fit in. And they'd always say racial stuff and say it's a joke. A few times I got comments like, "Why is it people like you are pedophiles and ringers?" But in fact, that's not what we advocate for.
Well, we know that factually, and if you look at the statistics,
Thank you for bringing it up.
it is white men in this country, when it comes to statistics of paedophilia, it's way, way supersedes any other race if we came to that. And I know that factually because I kind of look at what research is for this country, which is really quite sad. But yes, you're right. Because if you've got a small grooming case somewhere, but it really gets put in the limelight in such a way that, again, give the Muslims a bad name.
Sells a story for them, but they don't know the long impact. Going back on the question, I do always think, is it time I do go back to Pakistan and serve my own country? And on the back of my head, it's always, how am I actually serving Pakistan? That's my roots. I want to give something back to my roots. But at the moment, my future's built in the UK. My grandfather, they built our future here, and we're going to continue that. We have equal right to live here. We've paid our taxes. We've increased these lot of services economically as well. So yes, we have a right to live here.
So have you been back to Pakistan?
Yes, I have a few times.
Right. So you said something about going to Leeds University and you had to fit in, and I'm going to ask you about that. What does that mean about fitting in? Because I think nobody should ever have to fit in. You should be accepted for who you are, simple, wherever you are. So I just want to ask you about your experience when you went to Pakistan, how that was for you. Were you accepted?
In Pakistan, it was like they seen a celebrity. As soon as they came out of those arrival gates, it was like people from family wanted to take pictures and stuff like that. And I didn't like it at all. I loved Pakistan, but I didn't like the attitude of being treated differently there because they're my roots. I shouldn't feel like that. But the country itself is beautiful. I can say that. But if you look at the progression of Pakistan, it's not at its strongest. Current government as well, the people are not at the center. There's a lot of corruption in that country. And me, myself, being born in Britain, I would not be able to survive in Pakistan. That's one thing I can openly say. Survival in Pakistan is really hard. If you ask a Pakistani who lives there, they'll mention flour prices have gone high and potatoes and stuff, and they can't afford it. And you see some of the children in Pakistan, they're slim, and it's hard to survive there. Alhamdulillah, my family, they built our futures here, and I hold that British passport to live here. So I'm staying.
So, okay, so going back to the Leeds University and when you fitting in, what do you mean about not fitting in? or trying to fit in?
Have you ever heard of the stigmas related to Bradford?
I mean, there's lots, isn't there?
There's lots. So I went there, and there's people from Cheshire, London, Manchester, places like that. And these lot have grew up in families that, I'm going to say posh families. On my course, it was like posh people. And they'd make comments to you and, oh, why is it that Bradford people are drug dealers? Now, I had a nice car and they'd be like, suspect that he's a drug dealer or something like that. And they'd always suspect the worst in a person. And it's like they had held such a stigma of Bradford that I used to lie to people. I'm from Leeds. And then it came to a point, COVID happened, and I started reflecting on everything. Are these my real friends who are, first of all, being racist and saying it's a joke, being Islamophobic and saying it's a joke? And I don't care if I don't fit in, I'm going to be myself. So turned around, go to them, nah, we're not continuing this friendship. Halas. Alhamdulillah, I met a lot of white people that are not like that and will accept me being from Bradford. And today, I proudly say I'm from Bradford. I'm not going to change nothing. Bradford, if you come to Bradford, you'll see the beauty of Bradford. They made it in the headlines like it's a drug den and there's all sorts going on in Bradford. But if you look at it, people are working hard here. You look at the businesses, they've started in Bradford. That's why they've expanded across the UK.
And we are Culture of City 2025.
I'm that, yes.
Yeah, we've got that to celebrate.
Yeah.
And we are the capital, what? Curry capital?
Curry capital, yeah.
Yeah, capital of curry, whichever way you want to say it. But so, you've got the best food, So I'm going to tell you about an experience, what happened to me, my naivety at the age of 22. And I've shared this story on my Instagram more than once because people love to hear it and they found it so funny. But actually, it came at a real cost to my mental health.
Yeah.
So, obviously, bearing in mind, 22, I'm a lot older now, but I can talk about it. I've dealt with the trauma. So, I'm not from Bradford, got married, came to Bradford. When this happened, I was living in a flat. I had no friends in Bradford, and my daughter was 4 years old and my son was 2. I took my daughter to school, and the flat that I lived in and the nursery that she went to, it was only across the road, but I had to drive because I was being bougie at the time. I am not walking around the corner to drop her off. So I thought, I've got a little baby to carry, like a 2-year-old. So I'm going to take the car, drop her off, bring her back. Anyway, I met one of the moms, and she had a daughter in the same nursery as my daughter. So she's like, oh, I like your car. Oh, you got a cute little boy. And I thought, oh, she's lovely. And we started talking, and we made friends. That was my first friend. So I was excited I had a friend. And she gave me a name and the rest. And now she comes to my place, my flat. So you can imagine a flat. You've got a lounge, bedroom, 3 bedrooms, and a kitchen and a bathroom. So she's coming and she has these big bags that she carries, never ever did she tell me where she lived. She never invited me, but that was fine with me because I just loved cooking. I was just happy that I had someone to talk to. And one day, she had her daughter with her. I dropped my kids. I had my son, little one, but I dropped my daughter off at nursery. And we were going to go to the Arndale Centre in Keighley because there was this big posh centre. That's what I thought in my mind. Sorry for the people who live in Keighley, but Arndale wasn't all that at the time. It might be now, but it wasn't at the time. Anyway, now, again, naivety. I have never used my own card to put it in the machine and take money out. I didn't even know my own PIN. So my husband said, oh, you can drop me off at work and then you can go to this Arndale Centre with your friend. So my friend sat at the back and I said to my husband, by the way, can you give me my PIN number? Because I need to get some money out. He's given me my PIN, put it on my hand and dropped him off. Went to this Arndale Centre and I take out some cash, £30. So my friend said, oh, how much have you taken out? I said, £30. She said, you could take 300, like you still have £270. And I said, oh yeah, I'll come back and I'll take some more if I need it. But I was feeling really pleased that I've used the cash point and I've taken some money out. These things are big when you've never done them before. Went around Arndale Centre and didn't really find much because it was a bit dead. Came to Bradford. And the first thing I did was I just threw my bag in the lounge, went to visit Throne, the toilets, And when I've come back, anyway, she says, by the way, my friend, can you do me a favour? Look after my daughter. I've got something urgent to do. No problem, girl. I said, dinner will be cooked when you get back. So I'm there cooking the food. She's come back. And everything's fine. Come about 2 weeks later, my bank statement arrives and it says £30 on Dale, Keithley, wherever that place was. And then the same day, like about 4 or 5 o'clock, £270 was taken out of a place, Duckworth Lane. And I'm saying to my husband, oh, do you know where Duckworth Lane is? And he says, oh, yeah, it's that place. And I said, I don't even know, who, do you think the bank's made an error? Immediately, no, the bank has not made an error. Your friend has done you over. Exactly his words. Ring her now, what she won't answer the phone. I said, oh my God, I cannot believe that you would even think of such a thing. Mm-hmm. I said, how could you even think? So I rang her and she said, and he snatched the phone, had a few words, colourful ones down the phone. And then she's come outside the flat. He's opened the window from the top and said, how dare you come here? Do you have no shame? Anyway, she's adamant. And I'm just feeling embarrassed that he's just blamed her. Mm. Lo and behold, the following day, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to face her at school? My husband's just blamed her for taking out this money. Like, I've got my card, by the way, is in my bag. So I still have possession of my own card. So I dropped my daughter off and I thought, okay, the right thing is to go to the police station to report this. So she's there and she said, I can't believe your husband's blaming me. I said, neither can I, and I am so, so sorry. I said, but I'm going to the police station. Do you want to come with me? She goes, yeah, of course I will. So right now I'm thinking, mate, she absolutely has not taken it. Why would she want to go to the police station with me? Like, who would do that? So we've gone to the police station and they've got a waiting area and there's a few people sat in the waiting area for one thing or another. And I've gone up to the police officer and said, oh, how can I help you? And I said, I've taken my bank statement. I said, look, I've withdrawn this £30 and this money. I said, I don't even know where Duckworth Lane is. And the money is being taken. And he looked at it and he said, so what do you think's happened? I said, I have no idea. There's some sort of criminal activity. He said, okay, so where is your card? I said, it's in my bag. So I felt really proud to tell him that. Well, he said, right, okay. Now then, you've got your card because I want you to think about this. You've got your card. It hasn't gone missing. I said, no. Has it always been in your bag? I said, yes. So you don't know where Duckworth Lane is? No. He said, somebody's taken that money and also knows that those cameras, they've gone, there's X amount of days or at the time they did anyway. Anyway, he made me think. And then he says, what do you think's happened? I don't even know what overcame at that moment. I looked back. I said, I think she's taken it. Oh, she looked at me and she went, oh God, I can't believe you say that. I said, no, neither can I, but I actually now think that you've taken it. And the people who were sat there, the audience, like I said, they just laughed. And the policeman laughed at me. So I'm thinking, okay, now I'm getting very cross because I'm thinking everyone's thinking, what a joke. But it just shows the level of naivety some people have. And I was certainly one of those people. And I think he kind of said, you know what, go and sort it out and then, do whatever. So I walked out. I said, you know something? I said, I actually now believe that you've taken that money. I didn't even join at the dots to think that, hang on, my husband's given me my PIN code. She was sat in the back of the car. I've come back and put my bag in the living room. She had to do something urgent. I didn't, do you get, I didn't join those dots up at the time. Yep. So anyway, lo and behold, it gets even more disastrous, if you think that's bad. So she's walking with me and I says, you know something, you've taken the money and you're going to pay it back. You know what she said? She goes, you know something, I haven't taken it, but I'll pay it back. Who says that? If I haven't done something, I haven't done it. And I'm not giving you a penny if I haven't done it. So I'm now scratching my head thinking, you know something, you weasel, you don't say that. Anyway, I sat back in the car. I should have left her, honestly, right outside the police station for her to make her own way home, but I didn't. Sat her back in the car. But what I did do is I said, you're not coming back inside my flat now. I felt great that I told her that she couldn't come back in. I'm now going down my flat. You will not believe it. So my husband's CDs are missing. That time we used to have CDs, right?
Yeah.
That was a big thing. And he loved his CDs, all his music CDs. Like so many of them are missing. My children's trainers are missing. My daughter's coat is missing. There's so many things in my flat are missing, but I hadn't realised. I used to think, why is one trainer here? Where's the other one? So remember what I said to you at the start? She used to come with these big bags. So she used to come with these big bags and she used to take things.
Yeah.
So you know what? If you have a big bag, I'm sorry. Like, it's very trauma and triggering for me if somebody's carrying a big bag, 'cause I don't know what you're going to put in there. So, and I'm thinking to myself, right, all this stuff. I started to become a bit of a detective. And I found out that she had a boyfriend who's got a takeaway place in town. I drove up to town, found this place. And you know what? I've gone in and the guy behind the counter, my gold chain is on his neck. I've gone in. I said, excuse me. I said, that chain you've got on is mine. It's like, who are you? And I said, you know this girl? He goes, oh yeah, that's my girlfriend. He goes, why, what's she done? What, she pinched? I said, well, that chain for a starter, if you don't mind, can you take that off and give it back to me? He did. He was really nice. He said, look, she's a thief. She's taken money from my till. And I thought, oh gosh, this is so embarrassing. Now I'm going to have to admit to my husband that you were right all the way along. So, and I've now found out where she lives. So what I did was I put my 2 children in the car. A few days later, and I thought, right, I'm going to confront her and say, you've taken like the trainers, the jacket, the coat and all that. I parked up outside where she lives. And guess what? My clothes are hung up on her washing line. My towel and my clothes. I remember it like so vividly. And I actually I can't believe that I didn't realize these things were missing at the time. And I'm like annoyed, really annoyed at this point. So I knocked on the door. The windows were open. It's a really nice warm summer's day and nobody's opened the door. So I've gone next door. I thought, right, okay, I'm kicking the door and the door's starting to shake. And I'm thinking, what if this door falls down? Like, what am I going to do? So I've gone next door and these people opened the door and I just looked and I'm like, oh, because there's no carpet and it just looked mucky, this house. And they were like, you too, what do you want? And I said, look, I've come looking for her next door. They went, why, what's she taken off you? And I was like, oh my God, it seems like the world. Everyone knows about it apart from me. He said, look, she just finds vulnerable people, especially old ladies, and she'll go and thieve off them and then she moves on to a next victim. I said, yeah, well, those clothes are mine. He goes, well, why don't you take them off the line? And I said, well, no, I don't want them. I don't want them back.
After she won't.
So about 2 days later, I get a letter from her solicitor. Can you stop harassing our client? And I'm thinking, are you joking? Like, you're absolutely joking. Anyway, and that was a point where I thought, leave it. But what a hard lesson to learn is that when you let people into your house, how do you vet people? And if you're a person, perhaps when I look back, I was vulnerable because I was looking for a friend, but I chose the wrong person. But anyway, it's all quite a bit of a laugh because, like I said, my clothes on a washing line, like who would imagine something like that, and money, but she's got her to lie in her own grave. And I hope you're looking and watching. And you know what, if you are, stop it and stop preying on vulnerable people because somebody's going to come back and they're not going to be very nice to you. I've been...
Palmer's probably hit her by now.
Yeah. Have you got to share?
Yeah. I can't talk that enough, can I? You can put me on the spot. A naive lesson.
Because I was roughly about your age,
23.
But I think people are so much more cleverer in this day and age. Because I just think, gosh, when I think about the 22-year-olds in this day and age, and I'm thinking, I was away with the fairies at that age.
Well, trust me, they're still.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. They're no bad. And I'm naive.
Have you ever had somebody where you put trust in them and they've just...
Many. There's been many times I've put trust in. I like to... Early days, when I was younger, it was like, trust this person, trust that person. But you'd see this gossip aspect going around where you'd think to yourself, yeah, but I told my best friend at the time. How's it gone around? Turns out best friends like that. They like gossip, they start spreading stuff. And I was one of those that put trust in people quick. I trusted a lot of people, and hard lessons it took for me to value my trust as well. As in, you can't trust everybody. You look at this day and age, people are out to get one another. And who can you actually trust? Like some personal stuff I can't share with people. The people I can say I openly trust are my mum and dad. Who I know if I tell them something, they won't judge me. I've got two best mates. I can trust them with my life. It was like a stage, a period where I had to build that trust with them. And we seen our downfalls together. We seen our uprises together. We supported one another through it. So what happened was someone came to me just recently and said to me that you're quite naive, as in there's like people who are taking advantage over you and stuff like that. What I like to do is play cool with people. I'm one step ahead of them sometimes. I know what the game's like and stuff like that. People are out to get one another. So I'm always on alert with this type of stuff. I said to that auntie, yes, I am naive. Leave it at that, yeah. And then she started going on about her story, her naivety as well and stuff like that. And I was like, I know there's people that take advantage of a situation and stuff like that. But you know, when it's like life experience, you've been taken advantage of, or people don't value you and stuff like that. You learn how to manage that, as in, to be one step above them in that aspect, be prepared for it.
Sad, isn't it, that there are people who would take advantage of good, decent people, who genuinely want to do good for you. Like the story that I told you, I used to babysit this woman's daughter. So I used to spend all the time, in cooking and feeding people. That's just part of my nature. And that's something which has been brought up with, that you'd feed anyone. Whoever comes to your doorstep, who cares? It's food. I believe that you get blessings in everything, with the so those kind of things I realized that loads of my onions had gone missing, but, but sometimes when I actually reflect on that, I'm thinking, was she poor? Was there some level of poverty? But at the same time, everything that I had in my place in the flat, I've got better curtains than you. She had better bedding than me. There was loads of those kind of remarks. And I used to think, you know what? This woman must be absolutely loaded, because the way that she used to speak is everything of hers was better than mine. But actually I thought, well, now I know what I know. She didn't, where she lived wasn't the best, because, looking at the house from the outside, the door was about to fall off its hinges, so it wasn't. But yeah, it's all really interesting, but it's taught me a lot. And just like you said, it's nice to play naive, so that people, you can then see where people are with you, where do they think that, how they're going to treat you. And, and like you said, who you are, and you're firm with who you are. And the other thing is about, it's their loss. Because I always think that, good people are hard to come by. And if people want to take advantage of good people, and it's their loss.
So important people understand their own value and their own worth, and they don't let people take advantage of them.
It's really important. And I have those issues now with trust. I really barely trust anyone, and I think the secret is when it's with yourself.
100%.
It's never a secret once it's out of your mouth. That's the lesson that we need to teach people, is what is a secret? A secret is when it's with you. If it's not with you, it's no longer a secret. Mudge, tell me, do you have a wifey for lifey?
Not married yet.
You're not married?
Inshallah, when all little.
Are you looking to get married?
One day I am, and then the next day I'm like, no. Boys tell me about their married life and stuff like that. I'm like,
Then you think,
steady, I'm all right for now.
Something that is another discussion to have, because I've actually talked about this so many times, is the difficulties of people, finding a good partner, and how do people, where do they go to find somebody? Because things have changed dramatically over the years. So the sort of thing that was done culturally, people would get married, within the families, and that doesn't happen. It does happen, but to, it's a minority, or people would go back to their home countries, and again, that's changing as well. So people are looking for marriage, and then people, like you said, your friends might be saying certain things, and you just think, oh, well, I'm getting cold feet. I'm not sure if this is for me. So you're not married, and you live at home with your parents.
Yeah, with my parents.
Lovely. And that's quite the norm, isn't it? Girls and boys live at home, Muslims anyway, because that's part of the faith, culture, whatever one wants to call it. So tell us, what do you like to do in your free time when you're not out protesting, and when you're not flying the flag for Palestine and all the great, wonderful things? What else interests you and excites your spirit?
Do you know what it is? It's came to a point now I've forgot all my hobbies and interests. I'd say if I were younger, yeah, I'd say, yeah, definitely it was going to shisha and stuff like that, but you got out of that phase in your life. I think now is, I used to do nasheeds.
Oh, that's right.
So I used to like reciting nasheeds.
Can you do one for us now then? Can you do a small one for us now? That'd be really nice.
Let's see if I still got it in me. If I don't,
Oh, that's really lovely.
yeah, I'm putting it in, yeah. سبز گنبد واله منظور دعا کرنا जब वक्त नज़ा आए आका दीदार अता करना. That's not.
Mashallah, that's great. Thank you.
So that used to be my hobby.
Yes.
I found a hobby where now it's coming on the go all the time, protests and stuff like that. I like to do photography. So when I go to these protests, if I'm doing public speaking or anything like that, yeah, I still like to do a bit of photography of the protest itself. So that's a new hobby that I'm getting more into.
And what about sports? Do you like any sports?
I loved cricket. Me and my dad, when we were younger, Roundhay Park he'd take us to play cricket. And then now I don't play it. Now it's just like, don't play any sport, yeah.
Oh, that's really good. So, on that note, if there is anything else you want to share, if not, we are inviting people who want to know more about Muslims, because you look very visibly, you're a young lad, you're a Muslim, visibly Muslim, you have a beard. You know what I would say is that you've got two things about you. The beauty is that you're modern, but you also got your faith, which is at the heart of everything. And that's really important to have, is those two things, isn't it? And, you're very open for meeting people who are different from yourself and to educate them, hopefully nurture them, especially if they've got racist views or Islamophobic views. And if we didn't have these discussions and dialogues, how would we change people's hearts and minds? So it's about winning people's hearts and minds. As, Muslim, for myself as a woman, is I'm more than happy to have these dialogues. And I know that you said that you were too. So on behalf of both of us, we invite anybody from any party, wherever you sit, any racist party, or you're just curious and you don't know enough about Muslims, then, come to Jali's in Bradford. We will get you the drinks. We will get you the donuts. As you can see, we've just demolished 2.5 donuts between us. Yes. So thank you for listening. And if there are any questions and any curious questions, you can put them in the comments once this video goes live. And I'm sure you will join the discussion after this podcast too.
Yeah, I want to give a final message to my fellow Muslims as well. Remember this, our characters are important. And in this moment in time, we need to show what Muslims are actually about: peace and love. Stay united amongst yourselves. Whether you are Salafi, whether you are Sufi, Barelvi, whatever you are, it's about uniting. And always reflect on the Sahaba and Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the brutal times they experienced. We can be united, and our characters are what is going to bring people closer to Islam and reflect Islam in a positive light. So we may be in some brutal times at this moment in time, but our characters are going to improve this.
And what a lovely close message from Roger. And thank you for listening.